Remember, this show is PG-13, so you might hear a naughty word or two. Norbert's is having a sale this month. It's on ninja obstacles. I want to do a ninja course. I've never done one, and I totally want to do it. I want to compete against all the little kids. And
just Jessica just like elbowing him out of the way. Just like, bam, bam, got her.
I just think it would be so much fun. Go to norberts.com for a 10% discount on anything in their store with the code GymCastic. Norberts is also giving away a $50 Norberts gift card, and that can be used for anything in their store. All you have to do is go to Instagram, follow them, Norberts Athletic on Instagram, and then comment on the giveaway post. Good luck. Today, if LA burning down wasn't enough of a sign of the apocalypse, there have been no 10s yet. In NCAA season, it was week 2, still no 10s, you guys. We're going to talk about that. We have a mini commission about the best UCLA floor routines of all time, talking about choreography, my favorite thing. And we have brought back, by popular demand, Corrupt or Correct, where we discuss a score and if it was correct or not. It's January 13th, 2025, and welcome to the #1 gymnastics podcast in the galaxy. I'm Jessica, and I'm here with Spencer from the Balance Beam Situation. First, an update. Thank you to everybody for reaching out about the fires. Spencer is the one that lives in LA. We talked about this a lot on Behind the Scenes and gave a really in-depth update. So I'm going to put that segment of Cocktails on Saturday. At
Linked via podcast.
So, there's a whole extra podcast you get. So I'll put that at the end of the show. So you can, after we finish, you can listen to that part. But I wanted to, Spencer, how are you? How are things?
I'm doing fine is the upshot.
That is good. So that's your immediate update. So thank you.
My immediate update is I'm doing fine.
Thanks to everybody for reaching out. We really appreciate it. The headlines. So after 6 years of investigation, Anna, Li, and Jiani Wu have been suspended by the Center for SafeSport. They are at Aurora Legacy Elite Gymnastics Club outside of Chicago. And Anna Li, of course, was the alternate for the 2012 London Olympic team, was on the 2011 World team, and her mom, Jiani Wu, was a Chinese Olympian at the '84 Olympics. And Anna has been suspended for 9 months. She's also a brevet judge that has judged all over the world. And Jiani has been suspended for 1 year. So this is the Orange County Register. Scott Reed has a report out. What do you think overall about the length of time this took?
I think that's the most significant thing. Because first of all, I was surprised that we got a finding or the consequences or something happened because it had been 6 years. And, with SafeSport, so often, and one of the many frustrations with SafeSport, which is a necessary center, but also I don't think there's anyone including people who work there, who are happy with how SafeSport everything is going with SafeSport. But one of the most common things is there's not enough evidence for them to do anything. So these cases just sit there, and it's like a gymnast said this happened and a coach said no, it didn't, and that's kind of all you have. And then they just sit there for years, or they are closed with no findings either way. That's really common with SafeSport cases. So I was surprised that we actually presumably have enough evidence in this case to impose a consequence. But also 6 years is unacceptable. That's an unacceptable length of time for them to have this case. That's unfair to all parties involved. It's unfair to those who are making the complaint. It's unfair to the coaches. And there's not enough communication, and it's too much time. So it's a huge problem that it took 6 years for this to happen, but it's also significant to acknowledge that this is one of the rare cases where it looks like there was enough information for them to do something.
I wanted to follow up on the Ella Zirbes Utah situation because we talked about this a lot on College and Cocktails. And
so basically what happened on floor is, we weren't really sure what happened because it looked like, did she hurt her? She's in the corner preparing for a last pass. It's like, did she hurt her face? Is she out of breath? No, she trains in Utah. Surely.
Altitude.
She trains at altitude. Surely this is not a problem. So we were like, what's going on? Is this delightful choreography where she's like out of breath choreography? So Carly Dockendorf in an article, this is an article what the Salt Lake Tribune said, yeah, she's fine. She just felt like she lost her breath there for a second and kind of bent over and stood back up before doing her last pass. And her last pass was fine. Back 1.5 to front full, and she did it successfully. So we were like, okay, so she's not like, about to pass out maybe because she was able to do that pass, but you never know with gymnasts. So it's nice to hear that it was just like.
The thing that was so weird, it was like Maya actually stepped on the floor to her coach to talk to her. And we were like, wait, that's a deduction. What's happening? Is she trying to stop her from going? Is she encouraging her? Is she checking on her? Did they talk? And then she did her last pass. So we're like, okay, but that's so rare to see. And we normally only see that when a coach is like stepping in to stop a gymnast because it's a deduction to step on the floor. And so,
but also like better safe than sorry. Like totally. I'm glad she stepped in to be like, I need to know whether I need to stop you, kind of thing.
Because is what we're guessing happened. Yeah. Which we love it when we see a coach step on and like wave their arms and be like, no, we know you're this level of gymnast, so we have to do everything in our power to stop you from doing this. But yeah, but then she was fine and competed the rest of the meet. One of the most exciting things that has happened that I don't think we've talked about yet is that Ana Barbosu of Romania is competing for Stanford, which means she got into Stanford because Stanford's one of the schools you have to be accepted and then you can accept an offer. I am so excited about this. I'm also so excited that her the agency she used to get recruited is called Crazy Rich Athletes. Brilliant name for an agency. Everybody that has their college recruiting agencies, the name of your recruiting helping, change it to something like that because that is genius. We've been covering her since she was very first a senior, maybe a junior.
When she was a junior, and it was like we found the savior of Romanian gymnastics.
Yeah, and about how she taught herself English from watching anime, and she is just like, you could tell she's really smart, interesting, a person that had interests outside of gymnastics, and her gymnastics was really good. Some people have been saying, oh my God, she's only doing this to have a rematch with
no one's saying Jordan. She's only doing this to have a rematch with Jordan. It's just fun to anticipate a Stanford UCLA meet when they're both there.
I love that they are both going to get to
bronze medal on the tiebreak.
The final tiebreak. Dun, dun, dun. So yeah, there will be at some point a rematch.
If they're on each other's schedules because they're not in the same conference anymore.
Yeah,
there's no guarantee.
The 3-way bronze medal controversy with two of the current medalist and the former medalist competing together in college. I love this. I'm also just really happy for Ana Barbosu because it's a great move for her to go to a school like Stanford and come to the U.S. And I'm excited for what she's going to do after gymnastics. Not just excited to see her gymnastics, which is the best part about having all these elites from all over the world come to the U.S. But yay! So congratulations to Ana. We have some NCAA rankings to discuss. Some rankings.
We're wrestling up some rankings. We got some NCAA rankings to discuss. Okay. Leanna Wong is now number 1 in the all-around. So
she came in week 2 and promptly took over the first place position.
Yes. Jade Carey's in second. Also got a 39.725, but she had a lower score from the first week because she was at that Oceanside meet. And she's tied with Aaliyah Finnegan in second. So no surprises there, I would say, among the top athletes. Kaylin Cho, who is, the new kid on the block in terms of the top all-around athletes. But for anyone who's seen her gymnastics before, not exactly a surprise that she came into college and was like, I'm already nailing it.
Another elite. You know what's interesting? I was looking at, is it bars or vault where none of the top 3 are elites? They're all gymnasts it must be vault. Who are not, because most of these, it's like the elites that are coming to college because it's so easy for them. Yeah, it's vault. Mm-hmm. Mackenzie Wilson.
Anna Flynn Cashin, both from Kentucky, handspring pike halves.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a scoring controversy in the handspring pike half department at that Sprouts meet.
So discuss. Tell me.
Because, okay. Or actually, wait. Where was Michigan State competing this week?
I don't remember.
Anyway, I had an issue that Sage Kellerman's stuck handspring pike half was a 9.875 compared to a lot of other 9.9s we saw for Yurchenko 1.5s that were not as strong. And I'm not saying it was a 10-0. I had some, you can take for distance, maybe chest position, but I thought that was inconsistent. We had a couple Kentucky handspring pike halves go 9.95. And I thought that was, maybe a little high, but also strong. I mean, Mackenzie Wilson, who has gotten a 10 before for that vault, nailed it, stuck chest up. I only have distance, really, so I thought it was fair for 9.95. And then Anna Flynn Cashin smartly went after her, but also nailed her vault. So, they've got their handspring pike halves going. But I thought I had some inconsistencies with the scoring of Sage Kellerman's.
Do you think it was like in the air? Do you think it was her like chest position when she landed? What do you think?
I think it's distance and chest position. And Michigan State was at Florida. Yes, that was the thing, because Danny Ferris got a 9.95 for a Yurchenko 1.5 that she stuck, but I thought that was too high for form. And then Sage Kellerman got 9.875. And I think it is some some non-Yurchenko bias, maybe. You have things. But I think that the expectations for, and I've talked about this many times before, I think the expectations should be different for distance, depending on the entry of your vault and the type of vault. That the handspring pike half, you're not going to get as much distance as you are on a Yurchenko vault, like on a Yurchenko 1.5.
You are if you're Alicia Sacramone or Ellie Black or Portanova.
Alicia didn't get that much distance on her.
She didn't get that much distance. She got height, but she didn't get that much difference.
She would boom. Yeah, she boomed up.
Ellie Black gets a lot of distance. Simone gets a lot of distance. Andrade gets a lot of difference. But those are round off ons. But
yeah, that's different. It's a different thing. Yeah. So I feel like that's kind of a thing. And there is a deduction. Like, you have to take it, but I think that there is a tendency to underscore non-Yurchenko vaults compared to Yurchenko vaults.
Okay. We'll have to keep an eye on this.
Unless you have an Olympic gold medal, in which case the rules do not apply to you.
Obviously. I want to go into a little more NCAA because
very important. Everyone, because almost everyone competed this past week.
Right. And that's the thing. I wanted to talk about especially Florida, because we saw Sloane Blakely, finally Sky Blakely, finally.
Sloane was there too, but Sky is a freshman.
Yes. So we had a bunch of all the Olympic alternates have competed now. We had Kalia, Joss, Sky. Oh, Sky wasn't an alternate, but obviously she would have been on the team if it wasn't for her stupid
honorary team member like Shilese. Yeah.
Leanne, also competed. So tell me about Sky's, your feelings about Sky's bars, because I was like, oh.
Yeah. But it's a very strong routine. I'm happy to see that double front half out. It's like you still have to college it. And I think that's what we see with a lot of elites, where it's like you have to learn how to stick every week, when that's not super a priority when you're doing elite difficulty. Like, if you take a little hop in your dismounts, throw it in the pile with the rest of my 2 points of deductions. Who knows where they're coming from? Elite. So it's like, you have to get adjusted to college. And even someone like Leanna Wong went through that at the very beginning. I think we talked about it when Leanne was a freshman on bars, where it's like she has to college those handstands a little bit more, was the only thing you really saw, because the skills are lovely. And then it took her a couple weeks to learn how to college her handstands. And then she was like, 10, please. So it's the same thing will be with Sky. And it's very exciting to see her, but it's a really strong routine. And obviously she's ready.
Did Sky sell her dismount enough?
No, that's the thing. You got to learn to college it. You got to sell it a little bit.
Right. Even if it's not perfect, even if it's not perfect, you have to this is the thing. I saw gymnasts joking around, but practicing their ridiculous, I didn't stick, but I'm going to celebrate and run around like I stuck my dismount thing, which my favorite new phrase is you have to practice. This comes from Vanessa Zamaripa. You have to practice gaslighting the judges.
Yeah. I mean, bars coaches know how to do that. Owen can teach that.
Right.
Owen gaslights the judges all the time.
By putting his butt in the way?
He asslights the judges.
He assets the judges. He's like, you're distracted. Oh, you didn't see that. You're distracted. You're back. You're distracted. And he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we saw Sky do bars.
yeah.
So she's coming back. Hopefully we'll see more events, but leg injury. That's the bars is the one that's going to come back first. But I thought, she's able to do that dismount, just was a little ginger with it. But I think, she's getting there. So that's exciting. We saw Jahzara Robertson nailing her Arkansas debut in the bars lineup. You're welcome, everyone. I told you it to Paula Jessica. I told you she was going to compete bars in college. And it's like, we're entering the Jahzara Robertson bars era because she can do, like, especially at this point with her time at WCC, get rid of some of those requirements that she had to do in elite and some of the difficulty. And she can pare down to a solid college bars routine. And it's not going to be her best event. I think it's never going to be her best event, but it's really strong. And she's nailing it. She's ready.
Yep.
She's it seems like was made for this. Was made for college gymnastics. Like she's like, I'm in my element now.
That's what I was going to say. She did not need any instruction on don't look disappointed because it wasn't perfect, but she was just like, it's college, just celebrate every single thing. Like she did not need education.
She's always been like that. I feel like even as an elite, she was like, celebrate this amazing, ridiculous beam routine I just did with all this difficulty.
Yeah, she's like just a generally happy person and has landed on the right team for her. So I'm happy. I'm really happy for her. And she did really well on floor too, which obviously going to do well on floor. But it's nice that she can just showcase where she has great form and doesn't have to worry about doing, Nastia had great form until she had to do a bar dismount in elite. And then,
Well, when she was younger, that double layout was fine. She just at a certain point couldn't do that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's interesting with elites because sometimes, like, with elites who tend to thrive on difficulty, like Joss's execution scores were never going to be the highest, but she had the difficulty there to get high scores. Sometimes you worry about that going into college because it's like, now you have to pare down and be clean and show clean skills. And how is that going to work? And sometimes with the difficulty mavens, it's like when you ask them to do just like a simple skill, then you really see the sloppiness in the technique because you're not covering it up with difficulty. And so I think it's been impressive with Joss that when you see her pare down to do just like a clear hip on bars, it's a nice clear hip. It's a clean, clear hip. And I think that's going to help her certainly with her scores throughout her career. And we've seen, and also that's something you work on and it's something you improve. Hashtag Jade Carey, how much we've seen her improve year on year in that, like, she can do simple skills way more cleanly than she used to be able to do.
Yeah. It's just such a pleasure watching Jade in college. I just enjoy her gymnastics so much. It makes me so happy. Like, this is why I miss compulsories. Simone's going to yell at us again for talking about this. But it's just so beautiful to see people execute skills, like simple things perfectly, like absolutely perfectly. I love it. I mean, this is why Ellie Raisman is obsessed with the 1992 Olympics because she knows what's up. I bet she hated compulsories herself, but loved to watch them too.
Which is, just note, you still do in the US have to qualify elite with a compulsory routine when you qualify elite. So I was anticipating people writing in to be like, Allie didn't compete in the era of compulsories.
Yeah. I mean, the compulsories you have to compete a compulsory, but it's not like the elite compulsory is nothing
it's not like elite compulsories. You have to get a compulsory score once and then you don't have to do it ever again.
Yeah. And it's not like those beautiful routines to a violin that they did in the Olympics. It's like
you have to
it's just the skills in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more like the British. And Simone's like, ugh.
Yes. Do a perfect kick. Do this. Yeah. It's just, they're not pretty to watch. Speaking of the British system, this is basically the same kind of things. They have their new coaches and it's very interesting. So leading the women's team now is an Australian, Martine, who we last saw. She coached in Australia, Emily Little, and then she also coached in France. She was at the Olympic Games and at the World Championships has been one of the French, federation coaches for a while. So an interesting choice. I heard that they did not get any applicants from GB at all.
From actual Great Britain? Didn't get any applicants for the leadership position in Great Britain?
Yeah.
Oh, British gymnastics. What are you doing?
Yep. Yeah. So, yeah. So we'll follow that story. I hope it's great. I hope it's perfect. I hope it's like, oh, this everyone's super happy and it's a great choice. So we'll see what happens. Those positions are really hard, though. It is really hard. You want to change everything. Coaches,
And then you run into the federation and you're like, well, I hate my life.
right? And it's a political position, so you have to show you can. It's not, you can't just be a good coach. You have to be in a position where it's a political position where you can you're in charge of the athletes, but you're also have to get along with everybody, but you also have to make sure everybody likes you. It's not just a coaching job. And I think that is why, some people who maybe applied for that didn't get it, because they might be a good coach, but they're not good at showing that they get along with everybody and can get consensus and agreement out of a group of people. So,
speaking of which, that transition from coach to politician, Georgia had their first meet with Cécile in charge. And it started, you were terrified because they started on beam and it did not go awesome, but they did pull it together on the remaining events. And I think we saw evidence that it's going to be a aches and pains growing process to, restore Georgia gymnastics to Georgia gymnastics status. And it's not going to be just like suddenly Cécile's there and it's like, da 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 da, we got 198. But they have to recruit. It's going to be years of recruiting people, and by recruiting people, I mean Cécile being like, do you know who I am? And everyone's like, well, come to Georgia.
Did you feel like Cécile was selling it in her new college coaching position, as in, gaslight the judges, which is the thing. You celebrate everything, go crazy. Because Cécile has been she's an American, she's been here a long time, but she is also French. And that is not a French thing to do.
I mean, performing is a French thing to do.
It is. So how do you think that she...
I don't know yet.
After the Suzanne Jocelyn standard.
No, I mean, the jury is out on that. No one's up to the Suzanne Jocelyn standard. She didn't show up wearing, like, gold stilettos. Like, if you're going to wear tennis shoes, you're not Suzanne.
Yeah. You have practical outfits, you can coach gymnastics and spot
Cécile has to be Cécile.
Yeah. Georgia got a 195.975, which, you can start that way and look at Stanford. Didn't they have a 194 or something last year? And then they made it all the way.
It always has like a 194.
Yeah. So it's,
they're like, we have 3 bars routines. It's January.
Yeah. Anybody else that stood out to you?
Still Michigan State. I don't know what's happening with Skylar Schulte. I have no information for anyone on that, but they're still doing excellently, and are right up there and should continue to be right up there, and it's going to be good. Still knocking on the door.
Mm-hmm. Them and Cal, they're my...
I mean, I think Cal's at a higher level at this point. They finished second last season. So Michigan they were getting the best team to never win a national championship at this point, which I think is accurate. And Michigan State's coming up, but a few years behind Cal in sort of the evolutionary process.
I don't think Cal will have to be second as many times as LSU have been second in order to finally win. That's what I'm saying. We'll see.
Who knows? I think it's tough. It's tough for Cal, and I think they've done a very good job because they don't have the same things to offer. They just don't. They don't have a gymnastics palace to offer. They don't have the NIL to offer. You have to have a certain level of academic ability, and it's harder to build out a roster. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we see Cal consistently second, third, fourth.
Ninja level 10s. They can do it.
I know, but they're, just because you're a ninja level 10 doesn't mean you went to math class.
Doesn't mean you went to school at all.
No.
Oh,
you could have gone to International Connections Academy or whatever these fake schools are called.
Yeah, sit in this closet for an hour and break color, and they'll come back and we'll do gymnastics.
Hey, I went to a real high school, and we also colored in our anatomy class. We had an anatomy coloring book in my senior year.
This is the only way I can remember my anatomy was to do the coloring. It's
actually an effective teaching method, I think.
Yes.
You learn it because you're spending time coloring it in, but it is our assignment is a coloring book.
Every time we talk about this.
I'm 18 years old, and my assignment is a coloring book.
Every time we talk about this, I think about how remember when they showed like the Romanian gymnasts are going to school, and then they show they're in a classroom with a skeleton, and the gymnasts are sort of pointing at the skeleton and then looking at the camera like, am I doing this right? Is this supposed to look like learning? Is this supposed to look like school? Oh my God.
Yeah. It's like that Georgia documentary when they went to Kupetz's interior design class and she was cutting out pictures from a magazine.
Favorite fluff piece ever.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's
Speaking
where
of which,
the name the balance beam situation comes from. Suzanne came up with it.
Suzanne, when she used to cut out beds. She used to she was like, no more beds for you until you get beam. Cut out little balance beams and made them sleep with it under their pillows, as legend goes. Yeah, I would like to know if that's true. I would like to know who drew the balance beams, what they look like. I'm going to need more details. I'm going to need a recreation from a Georgia gymnast.
Mm-hmm.
And to know if any other coaches have asked for this.
I doubt it.
Cut out the bars and put it under your pillow. I mean, it's so creative. In the team rankings, so the default is the average, just so you guys know. So when we talk about the team rankings, that's the default, the average, but of course we'll tell you who got the high. So no changes to the top 2, but Alabama has moved to 3rd, Missouri and Michigan State bumped out of the top 5. So the new teams in there, below that, Utah, 4th and 5th is Cal for now. We'll see. Mm-hmm. But when we look at the highest scoring teams ranking, we have new leadership in that. Not in the top 2, like I said.
Still Oklahoma and LSU.
Yeah, the top 2. But UCLA at 11th with a score of, what did UCLA get? They got
197.55.
Which is a big improvement from the week before.
I mean, yes, it was, the scoring was a unique experience in that last session of the Sprouts quad, but qualitatively a big improvement over what we saw in the week 1 meet. And that B rotation was very strong. Even though
Alabama,
Alabama got a 197. Cal had that lower 196.2 from the first meet, so they got a 197.2, balanced it out, but their average is still 196.775. But Cal will feel a lot better about that 197.2 because it was a better meet for Cal. It was not like a point better. I think that reflects the scoring scape more than the quality of gymnastics, but there were some clear improvements for Cal.
So what's your assessment of Oklahoma versus LSU after we've seen them for 2 weeks now? So strengths and weaknesses.
We had the head-to-head. The season's over.
This is how
as John and Allie told us 158 times, this is basically the national championship. So I was like, okay, the season's over after 2 meets. Done. Bye.
John Roethlisberger also told us that his name was I'm Allie Raisman, and then he paused and was like, I'm not Allie Raisman. It's been a long weekend. So for John Roethlisberger, which is my favorite thing, and every time I see him now, I'm going to be like, look, it's Allie Raisman. I loved it. So I was like, yeah, I totally understand when you say something crazy because you're so tired because you've been talking nonstop for 12 hours. Yes, this job is hard.
We call it pulling a Jessica.
Exactly. But like,
you read what's in front of you, even if it's not your line.
But talking about Oklahoma and LSU, like I base my fantasy picks on basically I am bulking up on floor score or on a vault. I'm like, if you have a 10 on vault or you have not a 10, but I know that you can stick it every time, then you're going, which is what I feel like Oklahoma does. But this time Oklahoma had some, we don't have to stick. We just have to make sure we land on our feet.
On vault, yeah.
On vault.
There was some flashback moments on vault. I think that, so we've seen Oklahoma as ranked number 1, LSU number 2, and Oklahoma defeated LSU this weekend, and I think that was the correct ranking. I thought their performance was stronger. Both definite contenders for the national championship. I think what we're seeing from LSU right now, my concern is health, and that's not a new concern, but I am... just like they have so much depth that they can withstand it more than probably any other team, that they can withstand injuries. But, Haley Bryant is now back on one event. We saw her on beam and it was tight. It was like, I maybe haven't done gymnastics in about a month and this is my beam routine. But she's still Haley Bryant, so she's like a punch front is easy. But
not a punch front. It was not a punch front. There's no punch. She does a standing front, no
Oh,
punch.
okay. Yeah.
Standing front, no punch. It's my favorite thing to point out because it's so hard to just stand still,
Yeah.
not punch or hop, and do it. So, I love it. It's very difficult.
So that was solid. She was like dance series, ew. But that part was solid. But you have Kalia Lincoln, who should be, anchoring every event on a college team, who's just on vault right now. And there are other things like Shenikova's back for a 17th year, but we haven't seen her.
Yeah, she's
And
there.
she was out last year with injury, but she's on the team this year. We haven't seen her. KJ Johnson then was out with that sprained ankle, who was going to compete. And you would have her certainly in floor. For us, you would have her in vault, even though it's a Yurchenko full because it's the best one. So I think they have to worry about that. There's a lot of injuries going on, and I think that could curtail things. For Oklahoma, it's very interesting how few athletes are competing for Oklahoma. It's very small roster all around. And so they certainly have other people, but it's like, if you have Jordan Bowers, you're putting her on every event.
Right.
I also think that they may be less able to withstand injuries than LSU as we go forward. Like a key injury could be really devastating for their scoring potential because they are, like Cal, especially in recent years, like a lot of all-arounders and not that many people competing. And it's like everyone better stay healthy.
It's interesting because in the past, like we've seen that Oklahoma is so good at managing injuries, and creating routines. And I'm thinking about Maggie Nichols.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, maintained Maggie Nichols for her
had
career.
like no one leg and managed to, be ready at exactly the right time to compete at NCAAs. But LSU has a history of not managing injuries well and everybody has a lot of injuries, but like, I feel like, your athletic trainer is the secret to success in college, and having somebody who really knows pacing people and making sure that they are doing the right thing and holding them back when they need to be held back. And Oklahoma always talks about how much they love their athletic trainer and how great she is. And, they've all talked about her. So I'm interested to see what happens. I also wonder if Oklahoma is just like, yeah, let's compete our all-rounders now. And then we give them a break in the middle of the season, and then they come back at the end. So, which is the thing about like holding back Kalia Lincoln and Haley Bryant. Like that's also smart to not have.
Are we holding back Haley Bryant? She's out there in week 2. But yeah,
but
I think that
no arms being used.
Yeah, she's not using that elbow. We don't want you to have Morgan hurt elbows. Save that elbow, Haley.
What is 9 surgeries? Oh my God.
Yeah, so maybe that's like LSU is making an adjustment in terms of not throwing everyone out there every second. But time will tell. I think for LSU, I also don't be fooled by the scores you've been getting. Is my note for LSU right now on floor, because like 3 or 4 of those floor routines this weekend could have been in the 9-7s for short landings, because I felt like just in general at that meet, chest down short landing was not being deducted as much as it should, because you've deducted for the chest position and the short landing and the step forward, and that adds up and those scores can get very low. So it's kind of like, yeah, LSU is the number 1 team in the country on floor, but also I feel like we have some adjustments to make to lineups still. Like these are not the lineups that we should see in April.
Most importantly, we need to talk about opportunities for comedy, because this is my favorite part of gymnastics as a whole.
Jessica's like, ew, are you talking about who's going to win and assessing those possibilities? No, we're going to talk about sillies.
Let's talk about the Michigan one-arm save, which we normally only see in men's gymnastics. But
I mean, I would say not necessarily an opportunity for comedy, but an opportunity to be impressed by Josie Ranger of Michigan, who did her ray and caught it with one arm and stayed on the bar. She was just like, this is what I do. I can do it with one arm.
Yeah, which we love to see it. And she was competing at altitude, was she not? Weren't they at Denver when this happened? Or was that this week?
That was last week.
That was last week. Okay, I was going to give her even more of a shout out, but I guess saving of one arm catches enough. Tell me about Selena Harris's debut.
Oh, yeah. So Selena Harris did 3 events for Florida. It was not like her strongest meet, but she like was solid and is going to be very important for them. But so she was going on vault in the first rotation. And what the commentator intended to describe her as the newest gator. But that is not what he said. He said the nudist gator.
Oh no.
So forever in my mind, Selena Harris, the nudist gator.
Oh my God, that's bad. That's bad. And I can totally relate accidentally saying things like that.
I totally described Selena Harris as a nudist. Don't worry about it.
Let's talk about these teams do these little hand signs, like their own little team gang signs, like Utah does the U, and I don't know what any of UCLA has a LA sign.
Michigan
And so
has an M. But
Michigan,
Jordan Childs was doing the LA sign, specifically like LA strong kind of thing after her floor
yeah.
routine. But the best thing was the team was doing it with her, but we saw Janelle, who was clearly like, I don't need to practice. I could probably figure out how to do an LA sign with my fingers in the moment. And nope, it didn't go great. And it was all I could look at. And I've watched it like 20 times. I love it.
It's very funny that the part we see is just Janelle trying to get her fingers together to do this. And it just
And
looks
like,
a little bit obscene rather than like it's the LA sign. Oh my God. Speaking of, what did you think
just did
of
like a Pac-Man and some carrots?
So what did you think? Finally, people got to see the broadcast of Jordan's new floor routine, the Prince tribute routine.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you think about the score? Because from the score she got, she would have gotten a 10 from one judge. Was that deserved? Did she get her leap all the way around compared to last week where she didn't?
I thought it was high. I had some control, and her leap was close. Well, I don't think she even tried to do the 1.5. I think it was a full, but maybe she tried to do the 1.5 and it was under. Sometimes it's hard to tell. So it was high for me, but it was a very strong routine. I mean, it wasn't like last week she landed short, got a 9 score in the 9.7s, which was fair. This was a much better routine. But like you were talking about in the intro, we haven't seen any 10s this season. And I'm like, not for lack of trying, because we saw a lot of one judge 10 routines at these Sprout squads. So I feel like it's coming. And the scoring wasn't subtle. So I don't think anyone was holding back.
Before we get to corrupt or correct, the most important part of the show, I want to give you guys an update. College and Cocktails, the NCAA Gymnastics post-meet show. This is what behind the scenes turns into during college season. We want you to bring a friend this time, spread the love because it's very fun. So we pick a meet and then we watch it, and then we all get together immediately afterwards and discuss all of our thoughts about everything that happened in their meet with a mocktail or a cocktail. So this week it's Friday at 6:15 Pacific time, 9:15 if you're on the East Coast, and it's Florida LSU that we're watching. And you can go to the Balance Beam Situation, or I'll put a link in the show notes to Balance Beam Situation schedule. You can always find the most important gifts of the week and the schedule of links to everything at the Balance Beam Situation. And of course, you have your custom cocktail for this week or mocktail. Also, check out our 2025 season outlook with lots of questions answered from the coaches. Also, we have our fantasy league. So we have the extra YouTube show that we do every week where we tell you who's a steal, who's a bargain, who you need to draft to get a 9-9 at least. And so you can draft a new team each week for each event, which is my favorite thing and if you can't remember who's on a bye, we have a newsletter for that who tells you on a bye so you don't pick them. So we have 3 different newsletters. You can sign up for those at gymcastic.com. The format is 6 up, 5 count, just like real life. And you can pick a Leo for your team. You get badges for your victories. There's overall winner gets a full commission, and then we have weekly winners. And so you can see a link for that in our show notes. Now let us discuss the corrupt or correct. Remember, behind the scenes is TV 14-inch, so you'll definitely hear.
What is happening? What's happening in my ear holes right now?
Corrupt or correct, where I hit the wrong buttons at the same time on our sound effect thing. I just updated it, so clearly I messed it up. Anywho, let's talk about Chae's beam and discuss.
So this is the big controversy of the week. The Chae Campbell beam routine. So we're all very pleased that Chae has figured out hitting beam in her 5th season, because now she's in the beam lineup, and it's always been kind of a struggle for her. The other event, she's like, this is a breeze, but staying on the beam has always been an issue. She hasn't commonly been in UCLA's lineup, so that's very cool. But there is a controversy about this routine, because for specifically her acro series, because, okay, what they do, in both elite and college, you have a back layout, which is an E element. You have a back pike, which is a C element. In college, and not in elite, you also have a lay pike, which is a recognized element it's a back salto, starts as a layout, and then you pike it down at the end. So if you remember Peng Peng Li's beam routine, that's a very good example of a lay pike. She started laid out, passed through vertical in a layout position, but then was like, I want to keep this on the beam, so I'm going to big time pike down, and I'm going to hit it, and then UCLA is going to win a national championship in 2018, which is exactly what happened. So that's a very good example of a devalued lay pike. It's in between a layout and a pike. You start laid out, and then you do a pike. The question for Chae Campbell's routine, because she's going for the same thing, I think the intent is start laid out, pike it down, get D value credit for this routine. You're not getting an E for a layout, but you're not getting a C for a back pike. The question is she laid out enough to get lay pike credit? Or is this just a back handspring back pike, which is significant because if it's a back handspring back pike, that's a B plus C series. She's not going to start from a 10 because she doesn't have enough bonus. If it's a B plus D series, she is going to start from a 10 because she has enough bonus. So what I want to know from you is corrupt, so she's been getting a 10 start value. Is that corrupt or correct? Does this warrant a 10 start value, or should this just be considered a back handspring back pike series?
Yeah, I mean, watching it for me, I felt like this about Peng Peng's routine too. I was like, that should not be getting the E credit. To me, it's not a layout because it's never actually passing through layout.
I don't think the question for either is whether they would get an E, because they shouldn't. It's whether they get a D.
For me, no, it shouldn't get a D either because it's not. So a D should pass through
vertical and layout, and then you pike it down to land.
So it should be open hips at vertical. And for me, Peng and Chae never pass through vertical at the layout. Mm-hmm. But so it should not be getting a D. It should be downgraded to a C as a back pike. However, saying this, the coaches have gotten away with this for years. Like putting this in routine.
I mean, I think this is a more extreme example than Peng's. But maybe. I haven't watched Peng's in, 5 years. So I would have to go back and look. But yeah, I think that this is the big question. Like, should this routine actually be starting out of a 10?
Right. I feel like it's smart code hacking. It is the judging. I hope that the scoreboard, which is what we're calling the oversight, we need them better. The oversight commission is not as scary as it should be something more like
it needs to be called a tribunal or something.
The tribunal of accountability, the oversight vaders. They are something like that. Send in your ideas.
That really hits.
Corrupt or correct commission, which is the judges that are now assigned to reviewing other judges' scores and just keeping everybody on the same page. This is good because we want accountability and we want everybody on the same page the whole entire season, right? This is what we want. It's good for the sport.
Now let's just use that board and communicate more.
Yes.
Communicate more to the judges.
So this is a great example of let's go back. And this is what, there's a bunch of videos that the Judges Association puts out on, they are called the NAG, what are they called again?
NAWGJ.
Thank you.
National Association of Women's Gymnastics Judges.
They have a bunch of videos out with the trainings.
Which rolls right off the tongue.
You can go and watch, and they'll take old routines and they put them up from elite, from level 10, from whatever, from NCAA, and they'll use these as examples. So it's one of those things that you should go back and take Peng's routine and be like, yeah, this is the example of something we shouldn't have been given credit for, or we should be getting credit for. And I think it needs to be cracked down upon. It should be a crackdown uponable.
Crackdown uponable. I like it.
Layout situation. Is there anything else this week that you were like, oh, no credit? Like, I know leaps have always been a thing on floor where you're like, the turning leaps should not be getting credit, and they are getting credit. Are you still seeing that or not?
Yes, of course I'm still seeing that. My biggest pet peeve is the switch side popa, where you do a switch side and then overturn it by a quarter turn, and then you're actually doing a straddle 3/4 that's still getting recognized as a popa, and we're still seeing that like by almost everybody.
Yeah.
And that
My
should
biggest
be a
thing is
switch side with an imprecise landing connected to a straddle 3/4 is how that should be evaluated.
connections. You're pausing. If you're not moving, it's no connection. There's no connection. There's no connection. There's no connection. Not fair to all the people that are doing a connection. Even though I love to see things like a double Arabian,
Leah Femi gets a
enjoy
double Arabian to bask in the
bask in
glory of her own
glory
gymnastics
to
a
stag
stag
leap.
jump. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Keep doing because it's beautiful, but it's not a connection. But I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah. And especially on beam. But we had a question from a listener, from Tamra, and she says, let's talk NCAA for a second. That's her favorite thing. After the landing rule last year, we saw many, many landings where the feet didn't move, but there were adjustments with the arms and or torso. Here are a couple examples. Are these a deduction? And she gives the examples of Miley O'Keefe and Gabby Ledoux from last year. So, Spencer, describe and discuss.
So these
Compare
are
and contrast.
two different situations. What we see from Gabby Gladio is lands, holds the stick, and there's a little arm wave as she's, keeping balance. From Miley O'Keefe in the example linked, normally she just nailed that gainer full and stuck it cold every time. But in this case, from nationals, I believe, she had a lean forward at the hips to hold that. And her feet didn't move. She held the stick, but leaned forward. So yes, both of these are deductions. There is a deduction for arm movements to maintain balance on your dismount landing. So that's an up to 0.1, which is where Gabby Gladio, and it's a very small arm movement. So I'm fine with an 0.5 for that. It's you can do up to 0.1, but you can also take an 0.5 for Gladio. And so I'm fine with, that's a small deduction, but it is a deduction to have that additional movement to maintain balance, because you shouldn't need that. You should just be sticking solid. There's also a different deduction, which is trunk movements on your landing to maintain balance, which is an up to 0.2. And that's where Miley O'Keefe's comes in, because she's leaning forward at the hips. It is a trunk movement, not just an arm wave. So that's going to be a larger deduction. It's college. She's not getting 0.2. Can you imagine? But it really should be like a 0.1. Probably wasn't taken as a 0.1, but it's a much larger break in this case, in the Miley O'Keefe example from nationals. So it should be more than just that little arm wave. But yes, both of them are deductions. Any additional extraneous movement to maintain balance is always a deduction, or should always be a deduction. You have to wave your arm to keep your wolf turn in control. That's a deduction.
So the answer, Tamara, is yes. It's always a deduction. Yes.
Everything's
right.
always a deduction. Everything always should be a deduction.
It's always supposed to be a deduction.
You have to wiggle, move your arm, swing your arm, even if it's a beautiful cover, still a deduction.
Exactly. We had so many questions. I want to get to some of them, but before we do that, I want to talk about the mini commission that we have.
Ooh.
So we have a mini commission from World Championship level Club Gymner member Rhea, and it says,
I was a gymnast at Pitt in the late 90s, early 2000s. After my younger teammates graduated, I lost touch with college gymnastics until moving to LA and attending my first UCLA meet 8 years ago. I have since become a huge UCLA gymnastics fan and especially love watching their floor parties. For this mini commission, I hoped you could discuss the all-time top UCLA floor performers, not necessarily the top scorers. Oh, Jessica's favorite topic, top performers, not top scorers, through the years, and their most iconic floor routines during their Bruin careers. Excellent topic. If you want a mini commission too, you can join Club Gymnerd at the world champion level at gymcastic.com. So Jessica, obviously you wheezed and jumped out of your chair at the idea of this mini commission. It's the mini commission you were born to do.
I didn't plant this. This isn't secretly
excited.
me. This is what our listeners asked for.
You didn't have to do any extra work. You're like, this is off the top of my head. I was
like, oh, here's my list.
I think about this 9 times a week. So you don't have to ask me more questions about it.
Okay, so these are, in no particular order, but because there's no winning in art, Spencer, which is the
We're not
most...
ranking. We're not ranking because it's about performance.
Yes. So the first person I thought of was Kim Hamilton from the early days, who was just like legs for days, amazing performer, and just like was bringing fierce immediately from
Before
day
that
one.
was even a term.
Right. Exactly.
I feel like Kim Hamilton invented the concept of being into UCLA floor routines.
Yes. Honestly.
Like that started to be a thing because of Kim Hamilton.
Yes. I remember watching her and being like, oh, wait, what? This is the era of where I was like, wait, if I knew floor could be done like this, I would never have quit gymnastics. Like this was a possibility. You can just be angry and perform that way. That was perfect for me in high school. Yay! Luckily, I found that in adult gymnastics. But I never did angry routines. I just did ironic choreography, which is also
satire. You did Chuso routines.
Yes, but I can dance. Current era.
Yeah.
I want to jump to current era. Chae Campbell, currently on the UCLA team, has become, thank God, but the memification of Chae Campbell, the fact that she's the Rick Roll of gymnastics is the best thing. You'll be watching a video and it'll be someone like looking like they're going to fall over, and all of a sudden someone inserts into the video, Chae Campbell like touching the ground 4 times and her little dance move that she did that everyone loves. So she's amazing. I hope like many UCLA, she follows in the footsteps of many UCLA gymnasts and goes professional. And that brings us to the next category.
Categories.
I love categories.
Not a categorize.
When they're just for my favorite things and not rankings. Yeah. So people who were professional dancers or professional performers, some people went into circus where they had to dance before the UCLA career or after the UCLA career. So
important to differentiate, different category.
Yeah. So starting with Ariana Berlin, pro dancer before she went to UCLA, B-girl. She really brought Stick It to life by actually doing the hip hop from a hip hop artist perspective floor routines, which was always weird because it's like hip hop without the baggy clothes, hip hop in a leotard, but she brought it and was great. And I love that. She was in Culture Shock, which is a very well-known hip hop group, more well-known maybe in the Bay Area. But the next professional dancer that we have to talk about before she went to UCLA, Sofina de Jesus, had one of the routines that actually went viral, not like this viral sweater on TikTok. No, there's no viral sweaters. Get out of here. That's not a thing. Don't say that.
You're saying the term viral is over?
Yeah. So when viral was real, Sofina de Jesus floor routine, she was on a TV show when she was a kid, Sofina the Diva. And so then the people who went pro after, Stella Ume, was a circus artist for many years. Now she's a comedian, stand-up comedian.
Very important floor routine.
Yes.
Would you like to describe what's special about Stella Ume's floor routines? What impressions you got? Which was there one in particular that you liked the most?
I mean, they were a little bit different because they weren't Miss Val choreographed. Her sister choreographed them and then went on to choreograph for the first Australian World Champion routine on floor. They were very unexpected, fierce, I'm using fierce a lot, but she just looked like she might hurt you, but you would like it during that floor routine. There was no pandering to the judges smiling nonsense. There's no need for that. She's above all of that. And it was a low beat floor routine instead of high beats, instead of boop on the up, hitting the up in the air beats. You know what I mean? Like ballet is like doot, 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 always going up. And I really like that. No crowning nonsense in these routines. She didn't need to do that.
I really like Stella Ume's senior year floor routine the most because I think it was sometimes she had really crowd pleasing routines and sometimes she had really moody artistic routines, and I felt like senior year was a nice combination of the two, where it was entertaining, it was crowd pleasing, but it was also like you said, this is not a smiling routine. This is art. This is serious.
Yes, art. That is the
you can
thing.
do serious and crowd pleasing at the same time, like intense and fun at the same time, which is often those are considered like opposites in floor routines. Like you're doing a moody Brooklyn Moors routine, or you're doing like a smile at the crowd, la 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 horns floor routine, and those are opposites. And I think with Stella, it was like all of those can be one thing.
Which, speaking of current era, I mean, Brooklyn Moors. And I think BJ's done such a good job of keeping Brooklyn Moors, while giving her something different and working with her every time. And that is the thing. It's moody, intense. It is the embodiment of Pain of a Nation every time you watch Brooklyn Moors routines. I mean, you are transported to a theater in revolutionary Prussia, and did they have a revolution in Prussia? Anyway, it's someone, it's dark medieval times, and she's the only light. She's describing all the peasants' feelings about what's happening to them, and there's no food, and it's wintertime, and the struggle. That's what you feel with Brooklyn Moors. Did I mention
she's
Nia
a
Dennis?
Woman, so she wouldn't be able to perform in medieval times.
Oh yeah, there's that. They used to have
immediately.
men play the women's parts. I forgot about that. So maybe it's later. Maybe it's the late 1800s.
Yeah, I feel like we're
Oh, we're gonna get so many historian letters for College of Cocktails for this. Okay, so then we have Nia Dennis, who's also gone on to perform. I loved her routines. Okay, Christina Conforti, the Chicago hat routine. This was only competed one time, and it was never broadcast. And this routine I love because it was like
it's like a lost floor routine.
It is, and only because my gymnastics husband Scott used to videotape all the UCLA stuff everywhere and still has them up on YouTube. But that's the only reason there's like you can actually see the choreography if you're going to Meet the Bruins. But it was very Chicago style, like the actual Chicago Broadway show. But there's like a whole hat choreography. Eventually, this was passed on to Vanessa Samaripa, but she has this cool thing where she just drops backwards onto the floor in like an arch, and it's just I love this routine so much. And I wish that someone else would do this routine get it passed on as a legacy routine, because it's so Broadway theater style jazz. Leah Homa's cello floor routine, the era of don't wear sleeves routines in the early 2000s, or a bra apparently, because no one could have a back on their leotard. But it's this dark cello, just a single instrument. She did the Homa flares and the Homa flip.
Single instrument? You mean not just like 90 instruments and cuts in a routine?
Not just like a whole your worst nightmare cheerleading routine as floor music. Yes. And she also did the thing where she springs up into an arch on her toes. It's so beautiful. I could just watch her all day long do this routine. I absolutely love it. Also, I love a single instrument like Home Slice is using at Utah right now with the piano.
Aileen Gilstrap.
Yeah, Aileen's routine, but it's literally just sounds like a recording in a room. Home Slice is the greatest compliment if I call you Home Slice, just so you know. I'm going way too long on this, but Caitlin Ohashi, obviously, the split leg double layout routine, that was such a joyful, fun throwback music routine. And I think that's another reason why that went viral. People just like, it made them feel good. It made them feel something, like Brooklyn Moore always does. Okay, Brittany McCullough. This is one of the routines.
The 2010 national championship routine.
Yes. The one where she does her worship dance from church.
Where she just walks through part of the routine, which is just like the most I'm in charge here move ever. Yep. Like, you have to be confident if you're just going to walk through some of your floor routine.
Just walks in a circle staring at the audience like, oh, that's right. There's more of this. I am good. Now you're going to know. And I just love that this was like, oh yeah, this is like church. This is what I do at church. And people are like, what goes on at your church? And she's like, yeah, we don't all, she never said that, but I was thinking, yeah, it's not all sit in a dress and be quiet churches. There's many different kinds. I love that.
That was a very good vintage 2010, the national championship year for floor routines. I mean, I know too soon, but like Anna Lee had a very good floor routine that year. Although my favorite story about that floor routine. So it starts out where she like has her hands, like her palms on top of each other and pushes them out. The choreographic intention being that she's presenting the book of her life. Assistant coach of UCLA at the time, Jim Footy, said it looks like she's putting a pizza in the oven, and Val hated that, and that's my favorite thing. It made Val so mad. And I will never stop thinking about like you should put the pizza in the oven at the beginning of your routine.
Allison Stoner is one of the routines I feel like everyone should know about. Allison Stoner's routine, because not enough people talk about it. It should be in the pantheon of great routines. Allison Stoner, super flexible, and this routine, I would describe it as if a slinky was in a performance that the slinky had to portray a musical note. That is what the routine is like. It is the definition of musicality. Like, it's like her body is being played by the music. That's what it's like. And everything, it has all the elements. It has the low to the ground. It has all of a sudden stretchy dynamic elements, but it's still, everything is to the beat. And it's, if you look this one up, Allison Stoner, the Floor Files.
You could even link to it in the show notes or something.
Yes. You can do that too. If you go to the show notes, I will put these up. Spencer, what is your favorite in the pantheon?
Oh, you're done? Well,
yeah,
then, if you're done, I am extremely disappointed because you have left out the best one. My favorite UCLA floor routine of all time, which is Yvonne Tusek. I don't remember which year, but it was when she had the short hair, the Olympic hair.
Yeah.
It's so Pain of a Nation. It's so Soviet. It's so like kneeography and footography and bendy and all of these things that I love. And it's dramatic and it's interesting. And, it's not the movements you see from everybody doing all the time. Even though it's very, 80s Soviet, you didn't see these movements from 80s Soviets. It just has that feeling. Yeah, it's my favorite one.
And she is another one in the category of people who went on to be professional. She was in Cirque du Soleil for years, through her late 30s, because she retired and was working in the office. And then they were like, oh, we need someone to do bars in this thing. And she was like, okay, I'll come do bars for the show. And her dancing. Oh, I love Yvonne Tusek. So yeah, if you want to get recruited by Cirque du Soleil, you get to talk to Yvonne Tusek, which is just alone a reason to be in Cirque du Soleil. So thank you so much for this mini commission. We appreciate your support. Mini commissions help support the show. And this was the perfect one because I get to talk about my favorite subject of all, choreography. So if you guys want to do a mini commission, you can do it on the Join the Club tab at gymcastic.com and, make Spencer talk about, I think Spencer would hate leotards. Make Spencer talk
we do have fun with it, even though I think they're stupid. I don't hate it. Do a mini commission and make Jessica do her favorite Utah floor routines of all time.
I mean, I have some favorite Utah floor routines,
but it's like a challenge. I mean, that's
more of a challenge. Yeah, it's if we go back to the 80s era and the BJ era when she was there doing choreography. But there's a couple, like what's her name, who was an elite and now she's a stunt woman and she's in all the shows. Christina. She's from Washington. Yes, that's right. Feedback. If you want to send us feedback, gymcastic@gmail.com, or we have a message board and you can always put questions in there too. We had this question on college and cocktails, and so we looked it up specifically to get an exact answer, which I'm very proud of myself because I feel like I said it correctly. So when is a bail on bars? So there's two different skills that you can do on bars, from high bar to low bar, when someone swings towards the low bar, does a half turn, and either shoots over the low bar and grabs and does a kip, or lands in a handstand, which we see in elite a lot, landing in a handstand. The question was, when does it count as a bail and when does it count as an overshoot? So Spencer, the facts.
I mean, I will say bail and overshoot are the same word, but the skill should be a bail to handstand.
Bail
when
to
we're
handstand.
talking about handstand, but we say bail because it's easier and it's just a clear differentiation from an overshoot, which logically you're shooting over the low bar. So you will see some people say overshoot to handstand, but that doesn't make any sense because if you're landing handstand, then you haven't shot over the bar. But okay, so if it's a bail to handstand is from 0 to 10 degrees of vertical, you nailed it. no deduction for college gymnastics. 11 to 20 degrees, you get credit for the bail, but it's a deduction for not being in vertical. If it's past 20 degrees of vertical, then it's an overshoot.
Bloop, bloop. All of that is that was my, if you're looking at your face, take from basically your eyebrow down, overshoot.
That you've really painted a picture.
Did I paint a picture
now,
there?
Eyebrow down. Just remember eyebrow down. And then
now it's more like the angle to your upper, in between your part and your ear. Take the half of that. Anyway, just take a protractor, and yeah, it's very little. You have to, there's not very much to actually count as the real bail without a deduction, but an overshoot really.
Still too much for my taste.
Exactly.
If you're past 10, that should be a downgrade.
I agree. 20 is too much for me too. That's not a handstand if you're at 20 degrees. That's but I don't expect you to land there and hold it for 7 hours. And it is a deduction. It is a deduction for rhythm, which I'm just like, well, then don't make people land at handstands because that breaks a rhythm. Handstands break rhythm. Anyway, thank you for that question. Okay. How are
questions and the skill questions and the deduction questions? I love it.
Me too. How are transfers evaluated from Meredith?
Meredith says, quick question about how top NCAA gymnasts transfer when they haven't competed much, if at all, at their current program. How do coaches really know what their current skills are looking like, and how are they allowed to send in videos once they're in the transfer portal? For example, I think of a gymnast like Amy Weir, who did not compete at Oklahoma her first couple seasons, minus maybe an exhibition routine. However, she was clearly good enough to be on the Oklahoma roster and had a great level 10 career prior to that. Therefore, how does Missouri, her current team, know what her current gymnastics is looking like to offer her a spot on the team if there's no current footage of her competing, really? Transferring when you're quote-unquote not good enough to compete on a top team, but still very good teams, seems really hard. First thing is that they would have recruited her, probably, and been familiar with her during the recruiting process before she went to Oklahoma, so they would have a good sense of, her gymnastics and her ability level. But also, once you enter the transfer portal, all bets are off.
Yeah. The thing is, I think you can do more when someone's in the transfer portal than you can when you're recruiting them out of high school. Because there's an interview process, and you can, ask the questions you want to know. And the athlete can also, if you're trying to be recruited and you haven't gotten to compete, you want people to know what you can do. So you're sending videos to, once you're in the portal, or putting them up on social media of, here's what I'm actually able to compete. I just am not making the lineup here for whatever reason. Or,
and the reason being it's in Oklahoma, and
no one makes
it's really hard to make that be lineup.
Oh, you wanted to do gymnastics and competitions? Oh, yeah, this is the school for you.
Be Jordan Bowers or transfer.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, people really get to talk about what's going on, and, not that they don't do that when they get recruited, but it's much more of a mutual agreement during a transfer, instead of, I feel like when people are trying to get into colleges and get recruited out of high school, it's much more the school is just like, yeah, come here, whatever's happening, just come here, we just want you. But transferring, I think, is a little harder, and so you really have to show more at that level when you're at this level. Club upgrade after WAPO disappointment.
Marianne says, thanks for all you do to promote gymnastics and to foster a welcoming community for those of us who never quite found other gymnastics people in our everyday lives. This week, I especially want to thank you for working so hard to uphold journalistic best practices and for acknowledging when you get something wrong and have taken measures to learn and grow. Sadly, not every news outlet or media company make these same efforts, to say the least. Even a newspaper I have loved and subscribed for many years is not safe. When Jeff Bezos made the cowardly decision not to publish an endorsement for the presidential race, so note this is an older letter, but we're getting to it now, cloaked in the disguise of impartiality, I was torn. I did not want to harm the wonderful journalists working for the Washington Post, but I also didn't think I could stomach continuing my subscription after this. So I did cancel, and then I decided to find other ways to support journalists and media companies that align with my values. I've been a bronze tier member of Club Gym Nerd for years, with the possible exception of 1 year of forgetting to update my credit card information. Apologies, we understand. And now I upgraded to the gold tier. I am proud to support people who not only believe that democracy dies in darkness, but also have the courage to act on their values. GymCastic has kept me company and brought joy since I found you in 2013.
An
Through
OG.
several moves with my beloved but disorganized husband, a Trump presidency, a pandemic, a pregnancy, unexpected surgery to deliver said baby safely, life is a, quote, geriatric, so offensive, mom, to a boisterous toddler boy. Thank you again for all that you do. And Spencer, well, I'm sorry, but we all love you and are counting down the weeks to be with you. We're not going back.
Thank you so much for that letter. That's so nice. We really, really, really
and yes,
appreciate it.
You can upgrade your membership should you like to be in this way.
Yes. You get a whole extra hour. We even did longer than an hour on this College and Cocktails this week, which I love going through, like chatting with everybody. It's like I look forward
and
to
it.
it.
And then we go off the rails at about an hour and just like start talking about nonsense. Like
start talking about
period pajamas and sleeping naked and the normal conversation topics.
The normal things, which the people that play the drinking game that we aren't aware of, but they're playing along at home are like period, drink, sleeping naked.
And we have a drinking game for the John Roethlisberger Allie Raceman broadcast now, because anytime Allie talks about the 1992 Olympics when she sees a layout step out on floor, it's drink. Allie gets her.
We are going to see you guys on Friday, January 17th, 6:15 p.m. for after we watch the Florida LSU meet on ESPN2 for College and Cocktails, our Friday night NCAA Gymnastics post-meet chat show. And don't forget, we also have a YouTube show that is called Fantasy. What's our YouTube show called? Fantasy something?
Jessica loves it, you guys.
It is so hard, you guys. We do that fantasy update to help you pick your fantasy team, wherever fantasy you're playing, ours, any of the other ones. It's called Fantasy Update. But it's so hard for me because I have to say numbers a lot in a row correctly. And that's difficult for me. So until Friday or the Fantasy Update, please remember to take off on gay, split on rights, and stay tuned for a little College and Cocktails bonus after this episode. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you guys Friday at 6:15 Pacific. Thanks for listening.
Want to know what goes on our extra podcast every week that some call GymCastic After Dark? Here's a little taste for you.
Welcome to College and Cocktails, the original after NCAA meet, post-meet, family discussion party, hangout, debrief.
Yeah.
Since whenever we started this.
Who can remember?
The OGs. This is our weekly behind the scenes show. We ask your questions live or we answer your letters. You can write in at gymcastic@gmail.com. Or you can put them in the forum. We have a forum. And you don't have to be here live. You can listen on your favorite podcast player. Instructions are in the show notes. And this show is rated PG-14 because of feelings, strong feelings.
Yeah.
So
are you ready to start?
I'm ready.
Okay, what was that you were saying last week on the show about this oversight era and how the scores were going to be so much tighter?
They are tighter.
Are they? Did you watch this meet?
I did. It was still better than it has been in the past.
Okay.
I mean,
it's not a high bar, but okay.
It's not a high bar, but okay. But before we talk about that, Spencer, I know that we've gotten so many questions this week. So while people are still logging in and stuff, we just watched the Oklahoma, Utah, LSU, Cal meet. And I want to answer some people's questions before we get to that about the fires and what's been happening here. So you are
another
in LA.
Fun week.
Proper.
Yeah.
So tell everybody how it's been.
I'm fine. Most people are not. I am fine. I had to I chose to evacuate one night. I was under an evacuation warning, not an evacuation order, but I was like close enough. I'm getting out of here.
Yes.
Bye. No way. So, but that was just for one night. And now I'm back home. So I'm kind of in an okay zone right now. My parents are still evacuated. Have been since the beginning. But the house is okay. As far as we know now.
Okay.
So we're in a very good position compared to most people as far as this is going.
And how's the air quality?
It's ridiculous.
It's insane. They should have, when the air quality is at 300, everyone should be evacuated. But that happens regularly. You don't even. But it was in the 400s. That's
Yeah. Yes, it's very smoky. It's very ridiculous. And
well,
it's very weird. So, like, because my entire place I grew up has burned down, and that's just very weird. A lot of friends' houses have burned down. My elementary school burned down, which had strange nostalgic feelings, because not like I have any connection to it now or particularly liked it when I was there, but you have like a lot of formative memories at a place, and then it's like, oh, it's gone. It's weird. All the restaurants and businesses. It's very strange.
Yeah.
There's a breakfast place my family has always really liked, and my dad went there over last weekend and texted me like, I'm at Fox's having breakfast. I brought my iPad to read the newspaper, and I was like, okay, great story. Thank you for the information that I didn't want. But now, and then it's like burned down 2 days later. It's very weird.
Yeah. We'll put up, if you guys can Google just where to, send money and help if you want. But we went through we've been, luckily the air has been blowing towards the ocean.
Mhm.
Sucks for all the animals, but for us, it's been better. It's been fine. Like our air quality has been amazing. It's better than normal. So, cause normally that's the thing. We had a horrible fire by us. So we have giant air purifier in every room and all this stuff, but by us, it's been fine. So I've offered up our place to like 100 people to evacuate if they need to. But, so far, most people have a place, but a lot of people just went straight to San Diego because the air quality has been so bad. But anyway, we went through our closets last night because we're like, we have one Friday off for the whole year. So we went through our closets and just got cause people lost everything. And the clothes are sold out in LA. That's the other thing is people haven't been able to just go shopping and get underwear and stuff. So we didn't donate underwear, you guys, but
my parents did have to go because they're living out of a hotel right now. And they were like, we packed for one night because we had been allowed to go back. They had been allowed to go back by the Altadena sheriff. And then the National Guard came in and we're like, you're not allowed to do that shit. So they're like, we went to a hotel thinking it was going to be one night, and now it's been nights and nights. So we need to go to Target.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. So we went through and just got rid of so much stuff that's, we don't wear, but is perfectly, and
Right.
Coop had old suits and stuff because people, what are you gotta. So anyway, we're donating all that stuff. But thank you for all of your concern. Thank you to everyone who wrote in all over the place asking us how we're doing and how Spencer is doing. And yeah, so back to the meet. I couldn't freaking watch the meet on ABC
because it was yeah.
Which is important because, this is a life and limb are more important than gymnastics.
Debatable.
But wouldn't it have been a nice reprieve if the live fire shots had gone away so we could watch gymnastics? But anyway, so I had to watch it online. So I didn't get all my replays. But first, let's talk about Allie. Big improvements. Very pleased with how she did.
Pleasant listen. If you liked what you heard, get more by joining Club Gym Nerd.